listening to Planery, the podcast, your guide to home building, renovation and design. I'm your host, Emma, an architect and business owner with over 15 years industry experience, bringing you new episodes each week to answer all of your questions and provide clarity so you feel confident to design your dream home. Let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about one of the most important spaces in any home, and that is the kitchen. The kitchen is often called the heart of the home, and for a good reason. It's where we cook, eat, gather, and make memories, and designing a kitchen that's both functional and beautiful can really elevate your entire home. The kitchen is by far my favorite space as someone who loves to cook and entertain, so it's really, really important to me that people understand all of the options, all of the different ways you can do it. But again, with so many different considerations, where do you even start? In this episode, we'll be exploring what goes into designing the perfect kitchen, from layout and storage to materials and appliances. And we'll cover everything you need to create a space that works for you and your lifestyle. Plus, I'll be sharing some expert tips and examples to inspire your own kitchen project. And I have a little bonus for you. If you want to head over to the Planery Homes Instagram, you can send me a DM and say kitchen, and I will send you back our $49 kitchen guide for free. So all you have to do is make sure you are following us on Instagram and subscribe to our newsletter, and I will send that directly to your inbox free of charge so that you can get on with planning your dream kitchen design. Before diving into the design details, it's essential to understand a good balance of your needs versus wants. And given that this podcast is called Planery, you probably know by now that I'm a very type A personality, and I believe that every great project has a great plan behind it. So I want you to start by asking yourself a couple of key questions. And if you need to, feel free to pause the episode, grab out a notebook and write them down, or just save a couple of these for later that you can come back and re-listen to, because I really do believe that this is going to help you plan out your kitchen space. My first question is, how do you use your kitchen? Are you an avid cook who needs plenty of preparation space, or is your kitchen more of a gathering spot that is quite central within the house, but you are a little bit more of a fan of Uber Eats or just entertaining and not necessarily doing heavy cooking? The reason why I ask this is because if you are someone who loves cooking, you might need a bigger fridge, so you're going to have additional space for that. You might want a butler's pantry where you could even potentially have another oven, and there might be a lot more care and time taken when you are planning out the different appliances for your home. The next question is, how many people will be using the kitchen at the same time? This will really start to influence the layout and seating options. So, of course, you will have your dining room, but separate to that, you might want to have some bar stools in the kitchen. There might be an island bench which needs adequate circulation around it. And there could also just be the general question of, again, do you get people in if you're hosting parties? And so you have someone doing some preparation of drinks and then someone else is doing food. And how do you really just use that space? The other question is, what is your storage situation? Do you have specific items like really oversized pots and pans? Do you have specialty appliances that may be best stored in something like a butler's pantry where you just bring them out when you need them? Or do you have things that need a really dedicated space that you can just reach for in the morning, like Tupperware to make your lunch on the way to work? My final question for you is an incredibly important one, and that is, I want you to write down a list of everything that currently annoys you about your kitchen space. And this is because you don't want to make these same mistakes again. And a lot of people get really swept up in the design process and they forget to just track some of those little microaggressions from their current space. So if you put the dishwasher down and there is no space to walk around it and you kick your foot on it constantly, or, maybe when you're using the stove, someone is behind you using the sink and it's really annoying, I want you to list down all of those things, because this will come into the holistic picture of how you're going to plan out your next kitchen space. Once you have a clear idea of your needs and wants, it's really time to start thinking about your design priorities and where to start from best principles. For example, is functionality your main focus, or are aesthetics just as important? Knowing your goals will help you make informed decisions as you move forward. The layout is arguably the most critical aspect of kitchen design, and a great layout can really make a great kitchen. A well-planned layout will ensure that your kitchen is both functional and easy to navigate. So it'll be things like what I mentioned with adequate circulation and everything in a place that just makes sense. So let's go over the most popular layouts and a couple of their benefits. First of all, there is the work triangle. This classic kitchen concept connects the three main work areas, which is the sink, the stove, and the refrigerator. Keeping these elements within a triangular kind of layout really minimizes movement and makes cooking more efficient because you're not constantly moving things around, turning around to access a sink. It'll be right next to you where the cooktop is, and just having a real think about how you would heavily use that space if you were a real cook. The next is L-shaped kitchens. These are great for open plan spaces because the L shape maximizes corner areas and provides plenty of counter space. It's ideal for smaller homes or kitchens that double as dining areas because you'll also be able to get a couple of dining stools under one of the bench sides as well. Next up, there are U-shaped kitchens. A U-shaped layout can offer ample storage and workspace, which will make them perfect for larger households with a lot more people, or if you are a really avid cook. However, it's very critical that you ensure there's enough room between the opposing countertops to avoid feeling cramped. So as a rule of thumb, I would say the absolute bare minimum is 1 meter, but on all of my projects, I usually do 1.2 meters or 1200 millimeters. Then we have galley kitchens. These are excellent for compact spaces. This is what you will see in a lot of apartment buildings. It's just the kitchen along one wall. So this could even have 2 parallel counters if there was going to be a floating island space, but typically a galley kitchen is just along one wall. It may also be if you are in a townhouse and you're a little bit space poor that this is the best decision. These kitchens are really efficient and easy to navigate because they work in a linear fashion, but they can feel really tight and cramped if they're not properly designed. The last one is island bench kitchens. This is our absolute favorite, and I feel like this is such a classic Australian way to design a great entertaining home, and that is adding an island bench. This will not only provide you with extra preparation space and storage, but it will also allow for some interactive seating as well. Islands work well in open layouts, and they can serve as a central gathering point. It's also one of my favorite places if you are putting out a platter, just to have everybody standing around the island bench while still having the useful backside of the kitchen. Just ensure you always have enough space to circulate around the island comfortably, which are those critical dimensions that I just mentioned. And also there is the great debate, and I would kind of like to settle my opinion on this, but I definitely am happy to design it either way for my clients. I always get the question, should the sink go in the island bench or should the sink go on the back of the kitchen? And being that I am a designer, my preference is always that the island bench be one homogeneous piece of stone and it has nothing on it. It will just have like the dishwasher or cupboards or something underneath and room for bar stools, but the bench top itself will be completely unobstructed and clear, and the cooktop, sink, and all of those practical elements will be over on the other side of the kitchen. That is just my personal opinion. It might be a little bit controversial, but I also just think it makes way more sense to have your sink next to your cooktop, because if you're filling up pots and things with water, you don't really want to be turning around and going over the kitchen space. It just leads to way more chances for spillage and running into people with potentially a pot of hot water or something. And I just think this makes the entire cleaning process a lot easier. Now for the fun bit. Once you've settled on a layout, it's time to think about materials. Your choices will not only impact the look of your kitchen, but also its durability and maintenance, which are some key factors in such a high traffic area of the home. So here's a couple of key materials for you to consider. And as always, if you want a little bit of additional help with this, we do offer 1-hour materials sessions, and that is over on the Planery website. It's www.planery.com.au, and that is also linked below in the show notes. So if you need a little bit of extra help with picking out materials or knowing which brands are good versus which ones to avoid, feel free to book in one of those sessions and we can absolutely go over your space and pick the best materials for you. First things first, we have countertops. So quartz, this is one of your options. Quartz is durable, it is low maintenance, and it's available in a variety of colors and patterns. Next, we have granite. Granite is natural and elegant, but it does require sealing to prevent stains. So if you are someone who's a fan of spices and red wines, I would say potentially reconsider using this material, as it may just end up being a bit of a mess for you. Similar to the stone look of the above, you can also get zero silica reconstituted stone options, and there are a number of suppliers who do this, like YDL, Caesar Stone, Laverstone, a couple of different places like that. And this is basically to give you the same look as stone, but it is a much more cost-effective option. Finally, the other option for a countertop would be laminate, but I typically try to avoid doing this. I think that laminate countertops can look a little bit old-fashioned, and they're better just to be used for joinery instead of in such a high-traffic space. The reason why people use laminate is either for an aesthetic reason, if you're doing a bit of like a mid-century kind of look to your home, but also it is really affordable and versatile, though it is definitely far less durable than the other options. Next, there is cabinetry. So I've given you my top 3 materials for cabinetry here. First one is solid wood. So if you have an older home, you may be lucky enough that your joinery is actually made of solid wood. And that would be a really fun find if you have purchased an older property and you're doing a renovation. Solid wood is not really used in new home builds these days because it is such an expensive material, but it is very classic and durable. So great option if you can afford it. But the other options I'm going to provide are much more budget friendly. Second, we have MDF. MDF is a budget friendly alternative. It is incredibly easy to paint, and that means it can come in a variety of different colors if you are someone who wants to add a little bit more punch or personality to your kitchen space. Lastly, we have plywood. This is strong and moisture resistant, which makes it ideal for high humidity areas. And similarly to this, you could also get timber veneer finishes, and that's if you want to have a beautiful natural look. And another reason you could also incorporate, I guess, the more cost-effective version of that is laminate. So again, something like Laminex that has that timber veneer look, but isn't actually such a high quality material. Next up, there is hardwood or floorboards, and there is also engineered board as well. I want to say that engineered oak flooring is one of the most common flooring types that I would use in my spaces, and there are various price points for this, from $60 a square metre all the way up to around about $300 a square metre, but that is by far my favourite material. If you're going to be using hardwood or floorboards or engineered board or whatever elsewhere in your house, I would almost say do the entire ground floor aside from the wet areas in that same board, because it will keep it consistent, it will make your space feel bigger, and it is a really warm, timeless and durable material. There is something worth mentioning though, that of course if you are, dropping water, staining things on the boards, or not kind of keeping up with the upkeep of that, you may end up having to sand it back. So I always do advise people to really be careful of the coverage of the board, because the engineered boards come with various layers of cover, and that also indicates the price point. So there might be 3 millimeters, there might be 5 millimeters, there might be 7 to 9 millimeters, and that will vary in the ranges of flooring depending on the brands. If you look at someone like Tongue and Groove, they're much more up the top end of the market, or you can look at a more affordable supplier, but you definitely need to ask them about maintenance of the board. Lastly, some people still use the old school material vinyl, and that is because it's incredibly cost effective and water resistant, so it is a perfect choice for busy households. But again, this can just be a little bit of an aesthetic decision, and I think if you were doing something where you wanted a very, very durable floor, my preference would be to look more towards something like polished concrete in that space instead. And of course, that comes with its own unique challenges in terms of less acoustics, because obviously it's a hard material in a large space, but it's just something that I think would look a lot nicer than using a vinyl on your kitchen flooring. Last but not least, we have some splashbacks or backsplash, depending on which way you like to say it. Again, it can be a little bit controversial, but I say splashback. There is a couple of different options here. So the first one would be natural or reconstituted stone, and this is my preference. I think it looks incredibly beautiful to chase your bench stone up the wall, and it will not only make your space feel a little bit more homogeneous and like it has been well thought out, but it will also add some beautiful texture, color and elegance. just bear in mind that some of those stone types, as previously mentioned, will require sealing. The other type is a glass splashback. So you could do this in two different ways. You could have a mirrored splashback in either a clear mirror, a coloured mirror, a smoked kind of mirror, or you could have glass. And this is a really modern kind of look. It can add a sense of light and space. So it can be a good option if you're in a little bit of a small space. Although I will kind of mention that, of course, if you're going to have mirror, it just does require that extra level of cleaning. So if it's not something that you feel up for constantly when you're getting little oil and water splashes on it, then it's probably not the best choice for you. Finally, there would be tile for a splashback. That is a very timeless choice, but it can be a little bit more tricky to clean just due to the grout lines. So something to keep in mind, although there are some incredibly beautiful tiles now. I really love the look of gloss square tiles for a kitchen splashback, but it is completely up to you and your journey once you piece it all together as to what materials you use in each space. Before we continue, I want to remind you to visit our website at www.planery.com.au. There you'll find additional resources, design inspiration, and exclusive tips to help you on your home renovation or dream home design journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for early access to episodes, special offers, and so much more. Now let's get back into designing your dream kitchen. Storage is one of the most critical aspects of kitchen design. Without adequate storage, even the most beautiful kitchen can feel really cluttered and inefficient. So I want to share with you some smart storage solutions to consider. The first one is pull-out pantry shelves. This makes accessing your items so much easier, and it means you're just not digging to the back of a shelf endlessly trying to find something, because you're able to just pull it out and see everything there at once. The next one is having deep drawers for pots and pans. I cannot count the number of rentals that I had lived in over the years that did not have proper pots and pan drawers. And that is so annoying if you're a cook, because again, you have a lot of different pieces of kitchen equipment and it's really, really important to have adequate space for them. The next one is overhead cabinets that extend to the ceiling. This will not only allow for a very beautiful aesthetic, but it also means you just get to take advantage of the extra storage. Next up is Lazy Susans for corner cabinets. This is a really great way to maximize space, because when you open up that corner cabinet, you'll be able to roll out your Lazy Susan. There are a number of different formats that this comes in, but typically they are like a wire rack sort of thing. And I actually have this in my home currently, and it is so much easier to get use out of that corner space, and it doesn't become a dead zone in the corner of the kitchen. Next, there is drawer organizers for utensils and cutleries, but one that I really love that not a lot of people know about is you can do a custom drawer organizer for chopping boards. And if you are someone who likes to keep wooden versus perhaps plastic and stone and all sorts of different chopping boards for a variety of tasks, and you might even separate them out by the type of protein or vegetables and things you're cutting on them, having a organizer for all of your chopping boards is a really great idea. And lastly, I would just mention with storage that it's really important to understand if you want to have more drawers or more cupboards. I personally think that drawers are a lot better use of space. So I technically lean towards doing a lot more drawers in kitchen designs. However, it is worth asking the question of, do you want drawers? Do you want cupboards? Do you want lift-up cabinetry? Really thinking about how you're best going to use the space. While we're on the topic, let's not forget about a couple of smart features for your kitchen as well. A lot of modern kitchens include technology to enhance the overall convenience and efficiency of this space. So I'll run through a couple of these items to explain what I mean by kitchen technology. One of the first ones is smart refrigerators. These can even track your inventory and suggest recipes. So how cool is that? Not only do you have a refrigerator which has, let's say, a water point or an ice point on the front of it, it also is tracking what you're keeping and helping you with your grocery list. Next are the touchless taps, and this is for improved hygiene. ABI Interiors actually do an amazing version of this tap, and I am obsessed with it. I always want to put it in my clients' projects. It is a sensor tap, so you pretty much just wave your hand next to it and the water will come on. So you could pump some soap and wash your hands if you're in the middle of cooking something, and then you just wave again and it turns off. And I get way too excited about that. I think it's a really cool feature and just something really worth considering, because it actually isn't that much more expensive than a regular tap, but the functionality is exceptional. Another one is under cabinet lighting, so using LED strips for better visibility while cooking. This also is a really nice soft lighting to add to your kitchen space when you don't want to have overhead task lighting. And I find this a lot with many of my corporate clients who are working all day like me, and you come home and just think, I want some soft lighting. I just want to relax into my evening, and having those LED strips there is great. Incredibly important as well to add them in some of those other cupboard spaces like your pantry so that you can illuminate all of those items and actually be able to see what's in there. Lastly would be smart ovens. You can get so many ovens that do way too many functions now. It is absolutely insane and incredible to see. There are steam combination ovens. Some of them have app control for precision cooking. So next time you were in the area, I would suggest going down to a Winnings Appliances, an E&S Trading, one of those kind of people, Harvey Norman even, that have a whole bunch of appliances, and having a look through the range and seeing what would work for you. Finally, I want to talk about adding unique personality and style to your kitchen. This is your chance to make the space uniquely yours, and that is truly the point of doing a home renovation or a custom home design. And I feel like I constantly am reminding my clients of this. It's like, this is your space. You can do with it what you please. There are so many different ways that a space can be designed, and I really want to make sure that they are getting something that they are going to love. So here's a couple of ideas for adding that personality and style in. Firstly, there is bold cabinet colors or two-tone combinations. This can produce a really modern look, and I think that it probably sounds a little bit confusing when you listen to it, but again, I would just say Pinterest is your best friend for finding some images of kitchens that you love. My next suggestion is to add some open shelving, and this can be a great space to display a couple of items of decor, maybe a few of your favorite dishes or cups or mugs if you're a little bit of a collector, and you could also even pop some hanging plants on there as well, and that is one of my favorite things to see in a kitchen space. Another point is to choose statement lighting. This is things like pendant lights, chandeliers, overhead lighting, task lighting, some of those LED strips, maybe even a feature wall sconce, and all of these will create a really beautiful focal point in your kitchen space. Another great option is to incorporate natural elements like plants or wooden accents, and this is if you're someone who really wants a warm and homely kind of space. I think this can also be done with little feature elements like door handles, because often we just do cabinetry which has a finger pull on it now, and you don't get so many that have handles, but I actually love handles. I think a good door handle is like a fine piece of jewelry, and it can add so much to a space and really tell a story. So if that's something that you want, don't be afraid to mention that to your designer if it's really going to add that touch of personality that you're looking for. Lastly, I would say another way to do personality and style is by mixing textures such as matte and glossy finishes, or metal and wood, or stone and tile, and really just looking into the best combinations for your space that's going to give it the feel that you're looking for. Let's quickly recap the key points from today's episode. So if you haven't already, grab out your notebook, because these are the top 5 points from this episode about kitchen design. Number 1 is to start by understanding your needs and priorities for the kitchen. Number 2 is to choose a layout that suits your space and lifestyle. Number 3 is to select durable, low-maintenance materials that align with your aesthetic. Number 4 is investing in smart storage solutions and considering incorporating modern kitchen technology. And number 5 is to add personal touches that make your kitchen your own. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Planery. If you found it helpful, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, wherever you are listening to it. And don't forget to share it with someone who is planning a home renovation or their dream home design. And next time, we will be exploring how to create a functional and stylish bathroom. So stay tuned for that episode. Until then, take care, happy planning, and I'll see you soon.